guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm filming a video about how I became a full-time blogger. Now, a more accurate title of this video would be how I became self-employed, or the journey of becoming self-employed. But most people who have asked me recently and in the past have said, how did you become a full-time blogger? So in the spirit of answering the question that was asked, that is the title of this video. But as you'll see as I tell my story, blogging isn't my only source of income. So I just want to put that out there right away. So I tried to film this video yesterday and it was a hot mess because I didn't write down kind of the journey. I just kind of was telling it from my memory, and it did not go well because I wrote it down and I have like pages of notes with just dates, because it's really, first of all, that's how I think. I really think quite linearly, like in dates, but it's also the best way for me to share my journey and my story with you is to take you to the beginning and then bring you to now. So hopefully this video won't be too long, but I am going to share the full story. I've definitely shared lots of bits and pieces of it on my blog, which is always linked below. But if you just want to hear it, I've never shared it spoken out loud. I've only shared it in writing, and I've shared it in pieces. And so this is the full story all at once, and I'm sharing it speaking out loud, obviously. So I'm going to be looking down at my notes quite a bit just to stay on task. So forgive me for that in advance. So my whole journey with blogging started back in 2010 when I started a blog called The Insignificant Things, and it was just a little blog that I wrote on every once in a while for a couple of years, and it was all about the small things in life that end up teaching really big lessons, and how little things can end up being huge blessings, and all kinds of things like that. And so it was a very specific type of blog that I was writing on, and so each post went around that one topic. I didn't write about anything outside of that. That's just what I wrote about. So that was in 2010, and I really enjoyed sharing online, and it was fun to have my friends and family read it, but they were the only ones who read it. It was very small. So that went on for 2 years where I was blogging on that site. I really loved it. And then in 2012, I started a blog called A Spring in Spain, and it was for my study abroad trip. So I had the privilege and opportunity in 2012 in the spring to go and study in Sevilla in southern Spain for several months, and so I wanted to document my travels while I was there. I was doing a little bit of traveling on the weekends, and then generally just like the culture shock and living with a host family and all of that. Neither The Insignificant Things nor A Spring in Spain were monetized almost in any way. I think I might have tried to put like an ad in the sidebar once, but I never made any money off of either of those blogs. They were completely for pure enjoyment, and they were just a complete hobby of mine. I really loved being able to share and document my life in different ways on those two sites, but one was very specific to kind of small things teaching big lessons, and then the second one was very specific to my time in Spain. So when I got home from my studies abroad in May of 2012, I really wanted to create a blog where I could share more than just, you know, those two specific things. And so I started a blog, and it was called Blair Sunderland Blogs, which is my middle name. And that was on May 12th, 2012. And I didn't buy the domain. It was like, it had like a tag on the end, you know, and I wasn't monetizing it, but I just loved it, and I shared all kinds of little organizational projects I was doing over the summer, and craft projects and whatever. And so that was going on. I was writing on that a whole bunch through May and through June and into July. Well, in July of that same year, July of 2012, I was a marketing intern at a marketing firm. That was my major. I have a degree in business marketing. And so when I was working for this company as an intern, they had asked me to make some updates to their website, which was hosted on WordPress. If you're not familiar, WordPress is a hosting service for blogs and websites. It is very popular in the blogging world. Well, my other two blogs had been hosted on a different host, and so I wasn't familiar with WordPress. So in July of 2012, when I was asked to make these changes to this website at this internship, I was really worried about messing up somehow their site. And so what I did was I decided to move my blog to WordPress, to self-hosted WordPress, and to buy my own domain. And since my domain had been Blair Sunderland Blogs, and it was this long name, I shortened it to blairblogs.com, which is the same name that I have today. So that was in July in 2012. I continued writing on that blog, and it was very much a lifestyle blog where I just shared anything. I don't know what's happening here with my hair. I just shared anything that I wanted to. I shared recipes, I shared about travel, I shared about organization, I shared about relationships and family, and I just shared whatever I wanted. And so that was it was fun to have a blog that I could do that, since the other two had been more specific. Well, then in August of that same summer, so 2012 was definitely the year of blogging. So in August, right before I was going back to my senior year of college, I wrote a blog post entitled "What Every College Freshman Really Needs to Know." And it was just a really heartfelt post about the things that I wish I could have told myself when I was going into college. At that point it was 3 years prior, and just kind of sharing some wisdom, and hoping that if there were anybody else reading who was an incoming college freshman, that she would find comfort and peace in those words. So I shared that in August 2012, right before I went back to school. That was the first post on my blog that went, I don't want to say viral necessarily, but that caught on, that kind of got some footing. And so it really started to be shared on Pinterest and things like that. And I thought, wow, there are people who actually care about what I have to say. There weren't very many, but there were some, and that gave me such a cool boost. I just was like, wow, I really want to keep writing and try to grow this blog. This is so fun. I really love doing this. And so by the time I was back, in the swing of school, so from August 2012 through May 2013 when I graduated from high school, it became my most favorite hobby was blogging. And I blogged a lot, and I shared all kinds of things, and a lot of my friends on campus called me Blair Blogs as my nickname, and people would always talk about my blog with me, and everyone was just really supportive and sweet about it, because I think I was so passionate about it and I loved it so much, and other people saw that and they were just so sweet and kind and supportive about it. And I had a couple people guest post, one of my roommates guest posted it. I just was so excited about it. And actually that January, we had at school, it was called winter term, and it was just the month of January. So some students didn't come back for that, but then if you did, you took one class for 3 hours a day, all month long. Well, in addition to that, my school had these classes called Burst the Bubble classes, and they were student taught, and they were about anything you wanted. And so I applied to be a teacher for a class called Blogging for Beginners. I created the class myself. It wasn't like you didn't sign up for it. I said, I want to start a class called Blogging for Beginners, and I want to do it over the month of January, over winter term. And I got accepted as a teacher. And so I had, I think, probably 12 or 15 students who were peers at school who came to my class, and they gave you a classroom and access to the projector and all that. And I taught those people how to start a blog, and I loved it. I loved it so much. It was so fun to see people who had ideas in their mind be able to create them. And that's when the seed of I really love this kind of mentorship teaching element of blogging, because it's so fun when and a lot of people have been wanting to start a blog for a long time and have a really hard time figuring out how to do it. And so being able to teach that, it was so fun. I loved it so much. So by the time I graduated from college in May 2013, I definitely had started to dream about being able to do it full time. And though I hadn't made very much money, if any at all at that point, maybe a couple $100s total over the course of 9 months, clearly that's not going to pay the bills. And so I just was dreaming about maybe doing it for the future, but I knew that I needed to make the kind of adult choice, and I needed to obviously go and get a traditional full-time job, even though I loved it. So I definitely kept it as a hobby. So in July of 2013, I moved across the country. My school was in North Carolina, and my hometown is Baltimore, Maryland. So I uprooted and moved all the way across the country to Austin, Texas. And I started working at a 3-year-old tech startup in the marketing department. And it was a really good first job, and I really thought I was gonna when I got the job, I was so excited about kind of climbing the ladders and the ranks within this company. Since it was a startup, I felt like there's a lot of room for forward growth and upward growth. I was just really excited about it. But that was in July of 2013, and by probably around Thanksgiving, around November of 2013, I was super miserable. I was very, very unfulfilled, and throughout that time I had continued to blog, and I felt so passionate about it and I loved it so much. And when I was at work, I felt so drained and unfulfilled. I just hated it. I was so unhappy. There were several reasons for that, but I think mainly it was like there was just I felt like I had no creativity, no ability to be creative, and that makes me feel really suffocated. And so what I would do is I would go to work and I would have to leave early because there's so much traffic, and I would drive all the way to the office. And I would work all day, 8-9 hours, then I would drive back to my apartment and I would blog for hours, like most nights. And in the morning I would wake up early and start loading images online for my blog posts. I loved it. And I wrote some really fun blog posts during that time because it was like I had so much pent up creativity to pour into my blog. And so that's what was going on during that time when I had moved to Austin. Was I didn't really love my job, but I had a blog as kind of my outlet, and I really, really loved that. During that time as well, I think because I was so unhappy at my job, I really intentionally started to monetize my site and my content and really trying to figure out a way to make some money on it. And at the time I was just thinking that I would love to be doing it full-time in the long run, but that if I could just kind of come up with a side, kind of like as my side hustle and have a side income, it would allow me to save more, do more, more money means a lot of things. And so that's kind of what I was interested in. And during that time I had my first sponsored post opportunity, and it was only a $75 paycheck, and it was for tampons. I think they only gave it to me because nobody else wanted to write about tampons. And so I was like, sign me up, I would love to make $75. I felt like I had hit the jackpot. I was so excited and so proud of my little blog that I had to be able to do that. So that was all during that kind of fall, October, November of 2013. Well, December 2013 until January of 2014, those 2 months were easily the most chaotic, crazy, unpredictable, shocking, unexpected months of my whole entire life, even up until now. It was just a crazy, crazy time for me. So what happened was, on December 8th of 2013, I got my dog Charlie, and I had never had a dog before, and so I was learning how to raise a puppy. And then on December 9th, the very next day, it was my birthday. And then on December 10th, I went into the office and found out that the company had basically decided to lay off every employee, except for, it was a startup, so there were only about 40 to 50 employees, and they only kept around, I think, 5 people with the intent of selling the company, and everyone else was laid off. So the entire marketing team was laid off, and many other teams in their entirety were laid off. And it was shocking, and it was awful. It was just an awful feeling. I just moved across the country for this job, and because it was a startup, the company was hiring a lot of people from all over the US, and so a lot of people had just uprooted, and I was single, but people had entire families that they were moving across the country for this position and this job, and then we were all laid off. And it was so difficult. It was so hard when that happened. But having the little bit of money that I had made on my blog was helpful to me during that time, and it helped me feel more secure and safe because I had been able to put some of that aside, and I'd been able to have, even if I don't even know how much money that even was, but it was helpful to me to know that I had just a little something extra kind of padding the situation, because I had only been there for 5 months at that company, and so I only had 2 weeks of severance pay. And it was in late December, and no company is hiring in late December. It's the holidays. And so I was in a little bit of a tizzy trying to figure out what I was going to do. But through this amazing string of miracles and things that only God could do, only 10 days after I got laid off, on December 20th, I had a job offer that I accepted. So that was that. then the rest of December, I flew home to Maryland, and I spent more time than I had intended because I didn't have a job anymore in Maryland. And then when I came back to Austin on the 1st of January, I broke up with my then longtime boyfriend who I'd been dating for about 2.5 years. And I just felt like God gave me the opportunity for a fresh start with a fresh new year and a new job. And I was working, my new job was as the preschool area director at a local church, a large Texas mega church. And that was spoke to me so much more than what I had been doing. And so I just felt like I had this opportunity to really start fresh and really reevaluate. And I just knew that that relationship wasn't meant to be long-term. And so I ended things on the very first of the year. And then on the 6th, I started my new job. So by the time the dust settled toward the end of January or early February, I had a lot to write about. I mean, I had this new puppy that I was raising to write about. I had a layoff to write about, a new job to write about, a breakup to write about. I felt like I had more than enough to write about, and that is how I process my life, is through writing. And I just wrote and wrote and wrote, and I loved it. It was such a beautiful way to share kind of my story and my journey and how all of that came together, and also just kind of process how I was feeling. It rocked my world. You know, I was going along on this little path thinking that I was like kind of starting to look for other jobs because I was unhappy, but kind of just waiting until the time was right. And then it was like a lightning bolt moment where my whole world was flipped upside down. So as I continued on in my new job, from January of 2014 through May of 2014, it was I had kind of a trial run at work. So I was hired as a temporary employee until May, when they would decide whether they were going to hire me full-time or not. The reason being, I had no experience in ministry, and it was a very large job. It was a job where I was overseeing over 100 volunteers for Sunday mornings in the preschool age group, which is of incredible importance. It's babies that are 6 weeks old up through kindergartners, and very fragile, precious kids, and just making sure that they were safe and everything. And so the church was really intent on finding someone who would do that job really, really well, because it was super important and critical that it was done really well. So they told me, I would love to give you this kind of trial run for the next 5 months from January through May, and then we're going to reevaluate in May. I can't promise anything. It's not going to be anything against you. It's just that this job really does require experience, and you have none at all. So during that time, I continued really stepping up blogging and really trying to monetize my site further, because I didn't know what was going to happen in May. And I was like, this is going to be just my luck. 1 year post-graduation, and I've been laid off and let go. That's what's going to happen. Oh my gosh. But throughout those 5 months, I really came into my own at this job. I did a lot of learning. I had a business mentor, and I really just figured it out, and was surrounded by people who really helped me through that. And so I was able to get the job full-time at the end of May, which was awesome because it really allowed me to relax. My mind had been crazy for 2 years, or for a full year at that point, since I had graduated, and finally I was kind of in a more permanent position that I was really happy in. I really loved it, and I loved my coworkers so much. So that was awesome. So then, continuing on through 2014, by the fall, I started thinking about blogging full-time as money started to come in more. There were a couple of months in there where I was starting to match my paycheck that I was getting for my full-time job with blogging, and there were many months where I was just making fully a side hustle income, which was so helpful to me. I was across the country from family, so it allowed me to fly home to see my family. It allowed me to take Charlie to training classes and get me, the kind of care that my dog needed. Just all of these things I was really supported by my blog. And so I started to really intentionally think about going full-time with it and trying to figure out what that would look like, what the timeline on that would be. And it became this secret seed in my heart that I just started to really water and cultivate, of I think I can do this. I really want to do this. And at that time, there was just no possibility of quitting my full-time job and taking the plunge, because my monthly income fluctuations on my blog were so great. Some months were awesome, some months were okay, and some months weren't great at all. And so I just couldn't rely on that. Again, I was single, living by myself in my apartment, and I needed to pay my bills. So I stuck with the job. I loved it anyway, but I continued blogging kind of in the background. by December of that year, December of 2014, I got engaged. So from December of 2013 to December 2014, every single thing in my life changed. I actually also moved during that time as well, but that's more irrelevant. But when I got engaged, Riley, my husband, lived 4 hours north of me throughout our entire engagement and throughout the whole time we were dating. And so obviously once we got engaged, it was kind of like time to decide where we were going to live once we got married. In January, the following January, so we got engaged in late December of 2014. So in January of 2015, we planned our wedding date, which was going to be on July 31st. So we had about 7 months to get all of our ducks in a row and figure out what we were doing. During that month of January, we also, in the spirit of trying to figure out our future, we decided that we would start a life in Austin. Riley at the time was living in a very small town, which is where we live now, and he was ready to bust out of it, and he had lived in Los Angeles for about a year before that and had ended up moving back home for a series of different reasons. And so he was like ready to get out of this hometown, and we decided to start a life together in Austin where I already was. And so I just continued on with what I was doing, planning our wedding, working, blogging on the side, and Riley started aggressively applying for jobs all over Austin. 3 months later, by the time it was late March or early April, the city of Austin had to be off the table because Riley could not find a job. We could not find any company that made sense for him to move his life down for. It just did not make sense. And we have known, one of our first dates, we always laugh that we got so serious so fast, we just knew right away we would get married. And so one of our first dates, we talked about the future and children and whatnot. And we have always known that it was really important to us for me to be at home with babies in the future. And so it's critical for us, even at the beginning of our marriage, for Riley to have a job that could support our whole family so that whenever we did decide to start one, I could quit my job and be at home. And at the time, obviously, we were like, well, it'll be great. We'll have the blog as kind of a side thing. I'll continue working until then, and then you can move to Austin. Well, there was nothing available in Austin that was comparable to his job that was up here, and so we just couldn't justify it. So we really started praying about it, like, what are we gonna do? And we both felt at peace about me moving up here instead of him moving there. Well, in a nutshell, that was really difficult, really tough transition, so hard. Just to wrap my mind around the mental reality that I was going to be moving away from Austin, which is a city I absolutely loved. I had an amazing community there. I loved it. If you have been following along with my Rooted series, then you know all about the struggle it's been, which I will link above. If you have not, you can go check it out. But so at that time, we are now like, okay, now I'm moving up north. I'm leaving everything in Austin. What am I gonna do when I move up there job-wise? So I really started diving into job boards and monster.com and whatever, all those sites online, and I updated my LinkedIn, and I really started, and I gave notice to my job and said I'm gonna have to quit through tears. I'm gonna have to quit in mid-July because I'm gonna go get married. So Riley and I had conversation after conversation. We both prayed about it a whole bunch, and I'll never forget, we were sitting in the Cracker Barrel parking lot in Waco, Texas, because we often would meet halfway in Waco for dates on Saturdays. And it was, Cracker Barrel's always been special to us because it's where we went there on our first date. Our first date was supposed to be just coffee, and then we got coffee, and we were like so enamored with each other that we ended up having coffee for hours, and then we went to Cracker Barrel, and our first date was 9 hours long. And anyway, so we're sitting in the back of Cracker Barrel, which is like such a special place to us anyway, and we're discussing what the heck we're gonna do with the future. And we're just talking, and I just was like, I don't know, like I had looked at all these jobs and just nothing suited us, and we were way up here and there's nothing even nearby, and it was just like so overwhelming. We started praying about it, and we both kind of came to the decision, and we were like, what about blogging? Like, what about pursuing that? And I was nervous because that would mean that we would not have two steady, reliable full-time incomes. Blogging is not, you can't count on it. You cannot count on it. You can hope, or you can look at your past earnings and hope that you match those, but you just don't know. And so Riley really had the feeling that he was like, Blair, it's now or never. We're not going to go into life and build our whole financial foundation on having 2 reliable traditional full-time incomes and then buy a house based on those 2 incomes and buy cars or make plans or decisions for our family based on those, and then one day just think, oh, let's just like get rid of one of them and you should just start blogging. He's like, if you really want to pursue it, this is the time. It's really kind of now or never. Let's just start tiny, small when we start our marriage, and we'll just have a really tight budget and we'll go from there and we'll see if you can grow this. And his confidence in me was much greater than my confidence in myself, but I was so excited about it, and so I agreed. And so we decided that we would have his solid income and my fluctuating income, and we would try to make it work and just see what happened, knowing, obviously, that if it didn't work out, I could easily, I don't know about easily actually, now that I know the city. At the time, I thought I could easily just go get a full-time job if it doesn't work out and we're strapped for cash. Now I know that would have been very difficult, so God knew what he was doing when he had me start blogging all those years ago, because in this city, I do not know where the heck I would work. If you've been following with my Rooted series, you know what I mean. So then in July of 2015, that's when we got married. The transition from moving out of Austin, leaving a city I loved and an apartment I loved, a job I loved, a community I loved, friendships I loved, a church I loved, everything I loved. I was obsessed with Austin. I loved it so much. I was so happy, and I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life living there. I thought I'd like found my city. It was incredible. The transition of doing that to moving to the middle of nowhere up here, being married, so living in the middle of nowhere, being married, trying to blog full time, being my own boss, trying to figure out what the heck that meant. Just all of those transitions at once, that time of my life was really overwhelming. It was just really, I felt really overwhelmed. So from July through October of that year, I was very casually blogging. I really had intended on really jumping in and diving in and making it this full-time thing, and I really was catching my breath. I did a lot of homemaking during that time, which was really soothing to me. I did a lot of cleaning, a lot of cooking homemade meals, a lot of just like nesting in our home and organizing things from July through October, because for me to think about starting this whole entrepreneurial blog situation, it was so overwhelming to me. It like makes my head spin now just thinking about it, because at that time, the state of mind I was in, everything in my life had just turned upside down in the course of one day, and okay, sorry, I'm back. I had to go change out the battery because it died. Okay, so as I was saying, those first months of marriage from about July through October of 2015 were beautiful and great, but they were also really overwhelming, having left everything I knew. And so blogging I didn't have the creative energy to jump into creating this whole platform and whatnot that I wanted to. So I gave myself some time, and Riley was he was so supportive of that. He knew that it had taken a really big toll on me just leaving Austin and everything that had meant. And so he was super supportive of me just taking the time I needed. And so I really just was kind of a stay-at-home wife during those first months, and I loved it, and it was wonderful. And like I said, I just cooked and I cleaned and I just nested and organized and just got our home really cozy, and we were living in this teeny tiny little apartment, and so that's, for the first few months, that's really what I did. They're kind of a blur. I don't really know what I did. I definitely wrote a few blog posts. I remember a few sponsored posts coming through during that time, which I was excited about, but for the most part, I was just being really a homemaker. I really wasn't focusing too much on blogging, although I knew I would. I just needed a minute to catch my breath. Then in November of 2015, that's when I really, really felt like I was ready to kind of jump back in and make this what I wanted to make it. And so I started blogging 5 days a week, every day, Monday through Friday, and I really started to see my following grow and my income start to grow and all those things, just because I was being very consistent and I was dedicated to it, and I decided that I was going to do it. I mean, we had decided I was going to do it way back when, almost a year ago at that point in the January, but I knew I was going to do it. And so at that point, like I said, I started to really see my monthly income start to increase little by little. And so I felt like the hard work I was putting in was starting to pay off. So that went on from that November into the new year into about March of 2016. So in early March of 2016, I launched my Etsy shop, and I I will link it above. It's always linked below. It's blairlambdesign.com. And in the first month, I had, I think, 15 orders, and it's still in our little tiny apartment. And I was so excited about those 15 orders, and we were in our little apartment, and I was trying to figure out like where to store stuff and whatever. And it was just such a tiny, tiny, tiny little beginning, but it was so awesome. And so that was in March of 2016. And then in late March, we moved into our house here. And moving into our house was a huge marker in this journey for me. I think sometimes it's easy to not see how there's overlap between like personal life stuff and marriage stuff and business stuff. But like for me, there's a lot of overlap. So the fact that we were in this little apartment that we knew we weren't going to be in for a long time, it was difficult to feel really settled. And then when we moved into our house, I felt in some ways a lot more settled. And I felt like I could really push into this whole blogging thing more. So a few months later, in July of 2016, I launched my blogger mentorship program, which is a 3-month program for women who have baby blogs that they want to grow, or have had a blog for a long time that they want to grow, or for women who want to start a blog. And so I have, in 1 year, worked with 36 mentees, and I adore them. If you're one of my mentees and you're watching, you know I adore you. I absolutely love it. It is that same passion and fulfillment that I got way back when I taught blogging for beginners in the Burst the Bubble class when I was in college. I love it. I dedicate so many hours a day to it. I've been told many times by many of my mentees that I don't nearly charge enough. I'm constantly Skyping with them and emailing with them, and I just adore it. And so by last July, then I had 3 main income streams. My blog and everything that goes along with that, of which there are many. And then my Etsy shop, and then my blogger mentorship program. So those are kind of like the 3 pillars of income. And then under my blog, there are probably 6 separate paychecks. So every month I usually get 9 paychecks. Being self-employed is no joke. And so I get some from here, some from here, and some from here, and some from here, and here, and here, and here. So that's just how it kind of works. By August of 2016, August of last year, my monthly income at that point consistently met or exceeded what I was making when I worked in either of those traditional jobs. Okay, I'm sorry, my camera died again. This video is getting too long. Okay. So as I was saying, in August of 2016, I started to really see consistent monthly income that was matching or exceeding what I had made working in a traditional job full time. So we were really excited about that, and just continue to try to kind of brainstorm ways to move forward with my blog and what was going to happen with that, and all of those different things. Then last year, this is all in 2016, which was last year, in the fall, I decided to start this YouTube channel. I think it's more of a passion project than probably any other part of what I do, meaning that I just really love doing it. I love watching YouTube videos. I've been a YouTube junkie for years, and it's just something that I really wanted to kind of try out for myself because I thought it would be a fun way to share. Really different than blogging and writing will always be my first loves, but it's really fun to kind of share in this way. And so I started my YouTube channel last fall, and then from last about September through now, I've just continued to move forward with my blog and just figured out new ways to create new and interesting content, new ways to monetize my content. I'm really big about not having my site feel like it's just like flashing ads everywhere, and so trying to figure out ways to incorporate what I'm doing and make what I'm doing financially profitable without it feeling kind of icky to the readers or to anyone who's following along. And so that's something that I'm constantly kind of thinking about. So that's my story of how I became a full-time blogger. I just want to reiterate that it took me a good 4 years of blogging, and 4 years of blogging on the domain that I have now, but then if you want to add the 2 other years with those other blogs, then that would be a total of 6 years of blogging before I started seeing any kind of consistent income. And that's something that I tell my mentees in my blogger mentorship program all the time, is that blogging is not a get-rich-quick kind of thing. It's something that you really have to put in a lot of time over time and a lot of effort over time. And a few thoughts on kind of being self-employed and having this Etsy shop and blogger mentorship program and blog that I'm running and monetizing those 3 different things, plus my YouTube channel, but I'm not making any money on YouTube. I'm just doing it because it's fun. With those things, there are a lot of people in my life, online and offline, who don't understand it, and I just have had to really be okay with that. The fact that a lot of people don't consider it a real job, don't think it's a real job. A lot of times it's because people don't understand it. They don't know how a blog could make money, and so they don't believe that it does. But like I said earlier, I receive 9 paychecks every month from different aspects of all these different things, and so I am getting paid for this. This isn't just a hobby. I spend way too much time on this for it to just be a hobby, and obviously I have to decide every day if I'm going to spend more time on my Etsy shop, more time on my blog, more time on my blogger mentorship program, and it's constant balancing and juggling act. A couple of kind of general thoughts on the whole thing. If you have questions, I would be more than willing to film a Q&A video specifically about being self-employed, being a full-time blogger, whatever you want to classify me as. I am more than happy to answer questions about that. But just a couple of thoughts that I had noted. First and foremost, it is a huge blessing, and I am so privileged to have been able to walk this path. The reality is that I think probably in time I could have done this if I had remained single, but it probably would have taken many, many more years, because if I were managing a full-time job and also trying to pursue this, it's really challenging. So those of you who have a side hustle that you would rather be your main hustle and you also have a full-time job, I've been there, I know how hard that is. And so it was a blessing and a privilege to get married when I did, and being able to kind of take the plunge, because I was under, Riley's financial security. I'm just really thankful for that. I don't take that for granted. I know that doesn't always happen, or just it was just a blessing. It was awesome. Along with that, doing something like this takes a lot of family sacrifice. That first year of marriage, we were saving up for a house, and so this house that we're in now, and so we were living in a teeny tiny apartment, and we were living really small, very, very small. It was beautiful times for us. We really got to spend that time getting to know each other and figuring out how to be married, but we weren't going out all the time. We weren't like buying beautiful furniture and clothes. We were living very, 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 very small and frugally, and had a very tight budget, because we were essentially on one income plus whatever fluctuating income I was bringing in that month. That's since changed. We still live quite small, but it is nice to be able to budget based off of, now that I have a couple of years under my belt of doing this, we kind of know what my monthly income is. I don't say any of this to brag. I really am not trying to brag. I just want to kind of share my story. I think a lot of people don't understand how there could be money in these different things. And so I'm just trying to kind of share that journey. If you feel like I'm bragging, or if you feel offended, please forgive me. I'm not trying to be a bragging person. I'm really truly not. Other thoughts on this kind of self-employment thing: it requires a lot of patience. This journey has taught me so much about patience. It requires a lot of consistency and a lot of hard work. I have spent many, 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 many thousands of hours working online on my blog, whatever, to get to where I am now. Many, many, many thousands of hours. I am often blogging well into the night. I'm up early. I'm working on it all day usually. This is not an easy gig. It's just like any other job. There are challenges, and one thing I do miss sometimes is I love being my own boss, but I also miss having a boss, because sometimes it would be really nice to be totally held accountable by someone who is telling me what to do and what to prioritize. Sometimes it's challenging to know what to kind of prioritize on my own. It also requires being routines. That's something that I am often working with my mentees to find their routines, kind of how to make this work into your life, because you can just do it all kind of whatever way, but if you really want to see growth and if you really want to see income, you need to be consistent and routined with it. So, in summation, I just love it. I just feel so blessed to have been able to find at quite a young age something that just fulfills me so much, and to be able to really put in the time to make it happen. Those of you who have been following along with my Rooted series know that one of the reasons that we have waited to have kids is because of the issues with feeling rooted. And I just think God works all things together. And even though we kind of mourned not starting a family sooner, we are so thankful for the past couple of years for other reasons. And one major one is that I've been able to build the foundation for my blog, for my mentorship program, for my Etsy shop, so that whenever we do go and have kids, I can have those things on the side, and some of them I might have to tone down or turn off completely, but I can still continue bringing in income for our family, which is just, I'm so excited about that. I just love that this is a job that transitions into, you know, I'm already at home, and so when we have babies, I can continue to be at home, and just I'm gonna have to find a new way of figuring out how to put in those hours and those times. And Riley and I talk about that a lot, and we have a lot of, I think, really good ideas about figuring out that. And that is a conversation for another year, you know, down the line. But just, it's just one main thing that I'm just really blessed by is the security of knowing that I'll get to be at home with my babies when we have them, or when we adopt them, or both, because this job lends itself well to that. The flexibility is a beautiful thing. But it's also super challenging. Like, sometimes I wish I could just leave my stuff at an office and just leave. I bring my laptop with me on every vacation. I'm emailing all the time. It's really, really hard to turn it off because it's just a one-woman show. With my Etsy shop, I'm the one that packages everything, responds to all the customers, does all of that. Again, it's a one-woman show, and so, well, with my Etsy shop, Riley helps me with printing, but I do all the other things behind the scenes, and so it just can be challenging. It can be challenging to know when to draw the line, when to turn off the computer, you know, when to put the laptop away and move away from it. So although that can be really challenging, it's also the biggest blessing, is that I have so much flexibility in my schedule and all of that. So I have a lot of big dreams for this little business of mine in the future, and we will cross those bridges when we get there. I would love to hear from you. If you're self-employed, if you're a full-time blogger, if you freelance, if you have a side hustle, let me know what your story is, what your journey has been like. If you have any questions specific for me, I'm happy to answer them in the comments below, or of course, if I have quite a few, I can film a follow-up video answering some of your questions. Thank you guys so much for following along. Because of you, whether you're watching this from, you know, the embedded video on my blog, or whether you're on YouTube or whatever, I just want to thank you so much for following along and supporting me. It's because of people like you that I've been able to get to where I am now, and I'm just so deeply grateful for it. And the friendships I've made and the community that I've found online, it has been so precious to me in the past couple of years especially. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope you're having an awesome day. Thanks so much for watching this video and bearing with me through all these camera dying off situations, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye guys.